So this is a talk for John Chappell Natural Philosophy Society. It's bringing together videos which are uploaded onto YouTube at other times, so it's not completely new stuff. It's trying to put things in a more coherent form. Now, this is Richard Feynman or Feynman, and he was an American theoretical physicist known for his work in path integral formulation and quantum mechanics. He was given a Nobel Prize in physics along with some other people back in 1965, and this is what he says about special relativity. For over 200 years, the equations of motion enunciated by Newton were believed to describe nature correctly, and the first time that an error in these laws was discovered, the way to correct it was also discovered. Both the error and its correction were discovered by Einstein in 1905. Newton's second law, which we express by the following equation, was stated with a tacit assumption that m is constant, but we now know that this is not true, and the mass of a body increases with velocity. In Einstein's corrected formula, m has the value, which is that equation, where the rest mass is m subscript 0, and that represents the mass of a body which is not moving, and c is the speed of light. For those who want to learn just enough about it so that they can solve problems, that is all there is to the theory of relativity, meaning special relativity. It just changes Newton's law by introducing a correction factor to the mass. So that is, in his view, the connection between Newton and Einstein. Newton has constant mass and Einstein has variable mass, and it's connected via these equations. So he's quite clear about the relationship between Newton and Einstein. Now, this person, Don Lincoln, he's an American physicist, and he thinks relativistic mass is not real. So he's disputing what Feynman or Feynman is saying. So let's now look at the video of this, or a clip of the video from him.
So let's talk about that last one. The idea that you can't go faster than the speed of light. This is a well-demonstrated fact. So why is it true? If you ask a well-educated scientific layperson, they will tell you that it's because the mass of an object increases as the velocity increases. In fact, you'll hear this said by people with physics degrees. There's only one thing. It's just not true. Now, I realize that me saying that is going to confuse a lot of you, like this guy here, for example. So what's going on? Why is it that even some physicists will say that the mass of an object increases as the speed increases? Heck, why is it that even I have said that upon occasion? Don't tell anyone. The reason is a combination of how scientists teach relativity and our intuition at low velocity.
So he's saying that relativistic mass isn't real. Don Lincoln says there isn't real relativistic mass, and he gives a different explanation as to why it can't go faster than c, or actually go at c for material objects, and that destroys the relationship between Newton and Einstein, which Feynman gave earlier. Thus, need a different relationship between Newton and Einstein. Einstein's 1905 paper on special relativity says nothing about relativistic mass, and seems something imposed on the theory both by Feynman and his people like him to make sense of what Einstein was saying. But now Lincoln and the people like him are rejecting it. Now I say that Einstein's paper on special relativity was mistranslated, and this should have been pointed out better to physicists, that what they were going by was wrong, but unfortunately it wasn't. I'm going to give an example of the mistranslation. This was spotted in 1963 and published in the American Journal of Physics, and the relevant passage says, "But it is not possible without further assumption to compare in respect to time an event at A with an event at B. We have so far defined only an A time and a B time. We have not defined a common time for A and B, for the latter cannot be defined at all unless we establish by definition that the time required by light to travel from A to B equals the time it requires to travel from B to A." So they're talking about light travelling from a point A to a point B and then travelling back from a point B to a point A, and he wants time for both journeys to be the same. And highlighted here is the mistake. The word cannot is false. What happened was the German word nur and none were confused. Nur means just and none means now, and so this sentence is a mistranslation. And this is what the physics journal is saying, and in the square brackets is where the problem is, for the latter cannot be defined at all unless we establish by definition, and that is where the mistranslation part is. And the science journal says a faithful translation of the last sentence of the passage in question should read simply, "The latter time can now be defined in established by definition that time," and then it's so forth. That's the rest of the sentence. Now, from a faithful translation, I get this equation. It is c prime squared times t prime squared equals, in brackets, c squared minus v squared, close brackets, times t squared. Now if we make c prime equals c, then that gives the special relativity clock time dilation equation as follows. So the time dilation equation is found as follows. You just divide through the top equation by c squared, and that means on the left hand side you just left with t prime squared, and on the right hand side c squared divided by c squared gives you the 1, and then the v squared you divide by c squared, and that is the equation there written. The next step is to take the square root of that, and then you swap things over, the sides over. You divide by the square root of 1 minus v squared over c squared, and that leaves you with the time dilation equation. Now if we have had c prime and c not equal, then would have had variable light speed and could have had t equals t prime, which is the Newtonian physics. Thus the equation, which is this, links Newton to Einstein, where when c prime is not equal to c and t prime equals t, that then gives Newton, and when t prime is not equal to t and you have c prime equals c, then that gives Einstein. Need to clarify this a bit more. This is Crackler. He's a physicist. He did a translation of Einstein's paper in 1905, and it's in his book Einstein in English, Volume 1. He must have been unhappy with the usual translation, and so he's given his own translation of that paper from German into English. So in his translation he says, further we take it that the quantity, which is this equation, which is equal to c, is the universal constant, and he says it's the two-way speed of light in empty space. What is in the square brackets, which is the words two-way, is not something Einstein wrote in his paper. It is something that is being inferred, but it now seems an interpretation that Einstein was dealing with one-way and two-way light speed. Einstein did not mention one-way and two-way light speed, but now when people are reading his paper, they think that's what he might be talking about. So looking at that way in terms of one-way and two-way light speed, consider a box with light moving from one wall A to the other wall B. In one direction the light goes at speed c plus v, hits the wall or mirror at B, and goes back in the opposite direction at speed c minus v. The speeds c plus v and c minus v are the one-way light speed, and the round trip, which is the two-way light speed, is c, and that's attained by adding c plus v to c minus v and divided by 2. So you've got the one-way light speed in one direction as c plus v, and the one-way light speed in the other direction is c minus v, but the two-way light speed, the round trip, is c. The convention by Einstein is to set the one-way light speed equal to the two-way light speed c, and that is what is being done in the equation which I gave earlier, as c prime squared t prime squared is equal to, open brackets, c squared minus v squared, close brackets, t squared. When you set c prime is equal to c, what you're doing is you're setting the one-way light speeds equal to the two-way light speed. So it's just a bit of maths manipulation, and we connect Newton to Einstein. It's similar with general relativity, just the mathematical apparatus gets more complicated. Einstein was really just working on Newtonian physics. Einstein and his friends, before Einstein became famous, they were studying a lot of physics literature that Einstein failed to cite in his papers, and they called this group, they call their group the Olympia Academy. Einstein's papers didn't cite his sources from where he got the information. Such things as Boskowitz theory, this is a picture of Boskowitz, and vortex theory was what they were studying. And that gets now missed out from what physics students get taught nowadays. I think because Einstein didn't cite references, he gets treated as a new start. Thus educators miss out lots prior to him. He wasn't really a new start. Einstein was working from what other people had said in the 17th, 18th, 19th century, and all that gets now missed out because he didn't cite the references for that. If you look at my friend's talk here on Boskowitz theory, he explains how Boskowitz theory is related to modern quantum theory. So that's it. Einstein's relativity just keeps changing things, moving goalposts. it's been misunderstood, mistranslated, etc., as pointed out in this and other videos. The moving goalpost part of it is, it's Richard Feynman is saying that there's relativistic mass, and Don Lincoln is saying there isn't. So what you're doing there is you're moving the goalpost, and moving goalposts is supposed to be a fallacy. But when these relativists going by special relativity, they just don't seem to mind that, and they're just quite happy to change things, i.e. move goalposts. And in the case of the mistranslation, I gave an example where it's been mistranslated, and there are other mistranslations in the paper. You would think ideally that the German paper which Einstein wrote, great deal of care would have been made to make sure it was translated into English, but it wasn't. The English translation of Einstein's paper is full of mistakes, and that is the usual translation which everybody is going by. So that is about it. The whole of physics has been a mess, and we can take it from Einstein that he started a revolution in physics, but really it's all been built upon as a mess, and it needs a lot of sorting out to get things proper again. As I pointed out in this video, what the proper link between Newtonian physics and Einstein's physics is this issue of making C prime is equal to C, instead of keeping them very different, and that is what has messed up the time measurements, which are T and T prime. So that's the end of my talk. Thank you. Bye bye.